Hi, I'm Rev Dr. Terry Gallagher. I want to welcome you back to another episode of Come and See, where we look at the hope for the future that's possible when our faith guides our use of technology rather than our greed. Today I want to talk about airplanes. You know, airplanes are a modern form of transportation that, well, you can't live with them and you can't live without them if you believe all the statistics that there are. Right up front, I have to tell you that because airplanes are going to be one of the hardest things to solve in terms of renewable energy, for a number of years I purposely intended not to use them. And so I would take trains to long destinations, trying to avoid it with the realization that trains you can at least electrify. Airplanes, not so much. That all ended when our family wound up with kids and grandkids over in Europe, and there's no way you can take a train from Chicago to Germany. Okay? So we have to look realistically at airplanes and what does it mean for the future of our kids with our continued use of airplanes. The numbers are staggering. If you look at, there's billions of tickets being sold every year for passenger air miles. There's 20,000 planes that are currently flying the skies, expected to go up to 50,000 by the middle of this century. And so the numbers are tremendously growing. And yet there is possibility to reduce the effect, to reduce the pollution that's happening right now. In fact, we've made some progress. So if we look at Project Drawdown's numbers, airplanes are rated about in the middle of the technology pack, but still 5 gigatons reduced pollution, that's nothing to sneeze at, and real significant cost savings. You look at cost savings. Where does that come from? Well, the cost savings is if you can eliminate or at least reduce the amount of fuel per passenger mile, there's tremendous savings being done there, as well as tremendous pollution being offset. And so what can we do about it? Well, some things are rather simple to do. Right? And so gains can be made just by little additions to the wings. You've seen those little upturns and downturns on wings, 5% and 2% savings in fuel efficiency just by adding winglets, by studying the wind resistance and the drag and what can be done to offset it. But there are things that could be done without any great increases in technology. As simple as taxiing an airplane using one engine, not multiple engines. A tremendous amount of fuel is wasted just moving the airplane to the runway. And so why not just do that on one engine? Another thing is if you just allow information to happen. And so when pilots are given their fuel usage statistics and their efficiency improvements, there's dramatic improvements that are just within the power of pilots once they have that information and also when they know they're being measured on it. Little things can happen. Right? Obviously, there's a lot more wind resistance taking off and landing and in the lower altitudes. And so having faster takeoffs and more abrupt declines reduces fuel loss that takes place in that. But then there's also international agreements that have come about, even though the U.S. is dragging its feet on it, where there's an incentive, because if you don't reduce your pollution carbon footprint, then you're going to have to offset that with investments in carbon capture. But there's an incentive. If you do that voluntarily, then you don't have the tax that happens. And just having that incentive program has dramatically improved fuel efficiency. What's it all add up to? Well, when you add up more passengers in a plane, you add up the fuel efficiencies that are gained on the ground and in higher altitudes, we've already reduced fuel wastage by 40%. Staggering numbers. Staggering numbers. And yet there are more future designs that are coming. If you look at the ones that are ready to go right now, most of them are focused on rear engine placement and engine fuel efficiency and lighter weight wings and retiring of old wasting planes. Things that can happen. In the book of Ecclesiastes, he's a bit of a cynic. And one of his verses, he says, "Is there anything new under the sun?" We haven't been at this airplane business all that long. Really, when you think about it, it's only been a little over 100 years. And the staggering improvements we have, if you look at the design possibilities that are coming in the future of solar power planes, or at least hybrid engine planes where you have electric motors that are being used, there are real gains that can be made. Now, they're not included in Project Drawdown's figures right now because they're still on the drawing board. But there's hope for the future. Because at one time, remember, the thought that man would ever fly was considered ridiculous. So, what does the future hold for us? There's hope. We keep encouraging the investment in new technology with airplanes. In the meantime, what should you do? Well, number one is ask yourself the question, do you need to take that trip by airplane? Can you do it by teleconference? Can you do it by driving? Can you skip it all together? But given that you're going to take airplane travel, well, then direct flights are the best way because, again, more fuel is wasted getting the plane up in the air. And so if you have to take a multi-stage flight, that's more pollution. What else? Unfortunately, economy seating has lower carbon footprints because it takes up less weight and space on the plane. What else? You might want to give deep thought to it, especially if you're an ethical person, about calculating the carbon footprint of that flight and then paying an organization to plant trees in your behalf that will take that carbon out of the atmosphere. There's a number of organizations that do that. I recommend using a nonprofit to do that. But there's online tools so you can easily calculate that. Being conscious about our decisions. Right? One of the last areas to look at is changing away from oil-based fuels, diesel fuels, Jet A fuels for airplanes, and going to green fuels, biodiversity fuels, algae-based fuels. There's been some progress with that in the military, and that's still off into the future. Because again, you got to look at risks and rewards. You know, it's not like trying out a modern fuel on a car or a boat, where you, if it doesn't work, you just stay stationary, as versus coming crashing down. But there's hope for the future simply by changing our behaviors, by asking the airlines to report their fuel efficiency so we can start choosing airlines based on their fuel efficiency, but also by questioning our behavior. By doing those, we can help the future for our kids be one that is generous rather than one that is dangerous. Can we do this? You bet we can do this. We can do this starting now. See you next time on Come and See. We'll explore yet one more technology that brings hope for the future when our faith guides our use of it rather than our greed. Take care.
And faith is not in knowing, it's a willingness to learn. And faith is found in loving when there's nothing in return. So come and see, around the bend. Look, my friend, and what could be? Come with me, come with me. There's so much more to know, so come and see. There's so much more to know, so come and see.